Hello, I'm Billy, and this is the Unlock Your Child's Full Potential podcast, where we discuss how to give our children a head start in life and teach them some basic principles of success that will serve them well in adult life. This podcast is about the lessons that are often not taught in school, and it's up to us as parents to shine the light and coach our kiddos. Things like building their confidence, developing integrity, and a strong work ethic, shaping a worldview. It will also be about cultivating emotional intelligence skills, money mindset, personal growth habits, to name a few. I'm a mom of 3 young girls, and my mission is to raise them to be good humans, happy and fulfilled adults. Join me on my quest to learn more ways to parent with intent and raise thriving kids. I'm here to create a space where you feel supported and inspired to bring these lessons into your home and try them out. Let's dive in. Hello, and welcome to an empowering conversation about money and the ways we teach money to kids. My guest this time is Tania Vasallo, who's the host of the Courage to Be podcast and the founder of the Courage to Be Happy, a global community of high-achieving women entrepreneurs working to become financially empowered and independent. Born to a Spanish father and an American mother and raised in Spain, Tania was constantly in search of freedom from a patriarchal society. She now specializes in transforming a mindset of lack to a mindset of abundance and prosperity so that her clients discover their own autonomy in their personal and financial choices. With her guidance, her first Money Magic Miracles cohort of 28 women made over $1.2 million collectively in just 8 weeks. Tania has a 9-year-old daughter, and she shares great examples of how she empowers her to develop an abundance mindset, to be curious about money, to use her imagination to create sources of income, even at this young age, how to help her understand how money can be used to help the community, the environment, or a cause close to heart. Listen in as we talk about how to help kids create a foundation for a healthy relationship with money. Hi, Tania. Welcome to Unlock Your Child's Full Potential podcast. I'm excited to discuss with you topics like money mindset, abundance, and manifestation, and how we teach them to kids.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here and be in this conversation that's so needed.
Please tell us a bit about yourself and your journey with money.
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Spain at the end of Franco's dictatorship. So there was some things that got carried over there, as well as my family from my dad's side is very patriarchal, not only the country and the culture, but, having 7 brothers, my dad, and 1 sister, and she's the youngest. There was a lot of information that was passed down to me, of how we relate to money. And the unspoken message was basically that a man is a financial plan, don't worry, you don't have to worry about money. Men, there'll always be, you'll either marry the right guy that'll take care of you. And if you don't find the right man to marry, then you'll have a brother that'll take care of you. And if you don't have a brother, it'll be your uncle or your dad. But it was always like this given message that the men are the ones that know better or know more about finances. And I think that's done a disservice to the women and to the men too, because it's putting a lot of pressure on men. What if a man doesn't know how to do certain financial things? And then they feel bad because they're not at that level of expectations for them. And then my mom's American, so I've had the opportunity to come and live in the States, and I've been living here for over 20 years now. And that gives you an interesting perspective, having a Spanish father and American mother, the merge of both of these cultures. But there was also an opportunity, of being able to empower myself, to learn about money, to heal my relationship with money, to understand the beliefs that were passed down to me about money, and that I don't have to sign off or buy into those beliefs, because it doesn't have to be that way. We get to create our own story.
Yes. In your opinion, what is a healthy relationship with money? How can we cultivate one?
I think that a healthy relationship with money is understanding what money can do for you, what money can do for your community, for the world, not fearing it, not being in a place of lack mentality, like, oh, I'm, there's never enough, or I have to work really hard for money, like really questioning, becoming curious with your beliefs about money, like what were you taught about money? And when you can come to a place of understanding that these were just beliefs that were passed down to you, whether it was your family, your culture, your religion, the media, your teachers, like all of those things are influences on us and what we believe about money. So if you can start understanding it, becoming aware of it, understanding also that money is not good or bad. It's just the meaning that we give it. Money's just neutral, honestly. And it's become such a taboo subject, like, oh, it's this bad thing, or people with money are bad people and corrupt, and just understanding that that's not true either. There's bad people that are with a lot of money that are corrupt, and there's people with a lot of money that do amazing things in the world. And there's poor people that are corrupt, and there's poor people that do amazing things. So we really have to have a perspective on it. And having a good relationship is like a good relationship with a person, there's this flow and there's interaction between money and yourself. Like, you're not scared of it, you welcome it, you treat it with respect, like, are you throwing your money, you have coins everywhere, or the bills, how do you keep your bills in your wallet? Do you pay for things with gratitude? When you do an exchange of money, is it done with gratitude and from a place of like, oh my God, I'm supporting someone else. Yes, they just supported me. Here, I'm going to pay you, or vice versa. Or are you fearful of money? Like, we really want to look at it as a relationship with someone else, with a person. If you're ignoring money, it'd be no different than ignoring your partner in a relationship, or a friend in a relationship.
Yes. That's an excellent point. Yeah, you shouldn't be ignoring it. It's something that we all use, and we have to learn and study the subject, not just
absolutely.
For the best.
And I wish they taught this at schools, honestly, because we've injected so much fear or taboo, like, oh, well, you shouldn't talk about how much money you make. Oh, you shouldn't talk about the money that you lost. Or we've attached such an identity of ourselves to money, and it shouldn't be like that. It should just be a conversation of understanding it, because like you said, money touches everything. Money, if you live in any country, unless you're living out in the middle of nowhere, like maybe in the Amazons, and you're hunting and fishing for yourself, and you built your own home, you're going to need money. You're going to have to do a transaction to buy clothes, to buy health, to buy schools, to buy education, like whatever it is that you're using the money, you're going to need it to transaction. So you want to create a good relationship with it, and how you relate to money, and how you're putting it out there, how you receive it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. We need to nurture the right beliefs about money that will serve children well into adulthood. And I have some limiting beliefs from my childhood. For example, that money is hard to earn. That was something my father instilled in me. So It would be great if I could spare my daughters that same struggle to overcome. Do you have any money blocks that you're still working on?
Oh yeah, I can totally relate to the one that you said. And for anyone listening, that's something to remind ourselves of. We have money blocks. We have money beliefs that are limiting us, like this in your case, is you have to work hard to earn money. For me, it was the same thing. And it was also mostly instilled, I think it came from both sides. And there's like this pride of how hard I worked for my money, and for my success. But it doesn't have to be that way. You can learn to work hard. I'm not saying be lazy and just expect for money to dump on you, but you could also come from a perspective of like, oh, I can work hard, I can work smart, and I can also learn how to invest my money and have money work hard for me instead of the other way around. So that's definitely one money belief that I've had. And the reminder is that just because you listen to this, or you read a book about it, or you take a course, you're not going to be done with the work that we need to do of dissolving these money blocks. Because we have to remember, we've been carrying these for years, like you might, if you're 50, you've been carrying this for 50 years. If you're in your 40s or in your 30s, like this has just been passed on. And most likely this has been running the show for you for all these years. But there's so many different money blocks that I've encountered with my clients, working hard to earn money is one. There's never enough, or money is bad, or money is the root of all evil, or people with money are bad. I mean, these are all limiting beliefs that aren't true. It's just the meaning and the story we've given to money because we've acquired it from our own parents, from our own culture, from the media, from our religion, all these different backgrounds.
Yeah, and money beliefs are not taught in school. So it's up to us as parents to bring awareness on the topic. Can you tell us some tools and practices for parents to start the process of educating their children about money beliefs?
Yes, I think it starts with ourselves first. That's the first thing I'll say, because you can't expect to teach your child things if you can't catch them on yourself. Like I've caught myself, and I've done a lot of this work, but when I have my 9-year-old, come up and we're at a store and she's like, I want this and I want that and I want that and I want all these other things. And I've caught myself at moments saying what was repeated to me as a kid, like, no, we can't afford that right now. And that's like one of the big no-nos that I don't want to be using. I don't use that phrase. It's not an empowering phrase. It's an excuse phrase, because when you think of, I can't afford it, you're taking away the power that you have. And you have to remind yourself to reframe that phrase to, how can I afford it? And do I even want it? Like the question is, do I want that thing? Because if I do want it, then the next question should be, how can I afford it? Because maybe you don't want it, like maybe you're just like, I want it. And so when I've had my daughter come up to me and she's saying the easy response or the automatic response is like, we can't afford it, like, so that just shut up. I don't want to keep hearing it. That's basically what I'm saying to her. So you have to reframe that. The first place, like I said, is awareness with ourselves, like what story have we been telling ourselves, and start correcting that and reframing and start having a different relationship with money, and then passing it down to our kids too, just like with my daughter now, if she really wants something, or she has a dream of something, I want to position it in a way where I don't want to squash the dream. I don't want to say we can't afford it, because what if this is really her dream? I want to support her in her dream, but I'm not going to buy it for you. So I want her to become resourceful. And that's what we have to remind ourselves, that we are all resourceful and we have imagination, we have creativity, what lies in between our two ears here in our brain. We are capable of imagining what it is that we want, whether it's a home. Because here's the thing, no one wants money for the sake of money. So anyone that says, I want $1 million, I would say, well, why do you want $1 million? What you really want is you want to buy the home, or you want the traveling, or you want, it's the feeling of what that thing can afford you. So in the case of my daughter, for example, she has this dream right now. I don't know if it'll live on, if it's just a 9-year-old dream and then she won't have it in a couple years. But nonetheless, it's a dream. Her dream is to build an animal sanctuary and to save as many animals that she can on the planet.
Oh,
and
so sweet.
And she wants to buy land, and she's been looking into land, and then she wants to have chickens on our land, and we can't have chickens where we live. And so instead of saying we can't afford it, or that's a stupid dream, or why would you want to do that, you want to encourage them. So I'll ask her and I'll be like, well, why don't you do some research? How much does a land cost? And let's look back even more. Like, how much does it cost to feed your chickens every month? Like, what animals are you going to have in this sanctuary? And so she's like, 3 horses, 10 chickens, and whatever, 2 dogs, she'll give you. So you want to keep creating that curiosity with them. and ask them questions. And so she'll tell me all these different things that she wants. And then I'm like, well, how much does it cost to feed a horse per month? Why don't you do some research so we know how much money we would need for this? So that way it empowers her, as it'll be in real life when she becomes an adult, to become resourceful, to become creative, to become problem solution driven, not like, oh, I can't afford it, or we all have the same power. We can create and we can manifest the things that we want, but we have to believe in ourselves. And if you've grown up, unfortunately, in a place where your parents didn't believe in you, or money was a struggle at home, or your parents ended up divorcing because of money, then those are the beliefs you're carrying right now. So you really want to work and be cautious of how you're feeding them, and just empower them. Or like, if we go to the store now, could I buy her the things that she's wanting? Yes. But I also want her to give a value to money, because money really is an exchange. So I'll be like, well, if you really want that thing, how about I pay for half of it and you pay for the other half? And then she might say, well, where do I come up with the money? And I'm like, well, you can save from your allowances, or from maybe a birthday gift. What could you do to generate money?
Because they are presented with the option to buy it themselves, they think much more deeply. Do I really want it? Do I really need it? And I don't want to raise entitled kids, because even if I can buy them the things they want, you shouldn't be able to just buy anything. You have to think if you need it, if the price matches the value that the item brings. So I completely agree. Do you have any ideas on the ways they can earn their money, aside from allowance and birthday gifts?
I like to turn it around. Instead of me giving her ideas, sometimes I will, I give her ideas. Like, she's all into birds, and she's also very creative and artistic. So I'll give her some ideas. I'll be like, well, remember those birds that you drew? Why don't you turn them into bird cards? And then that way we'll get them printed, and then you can sell these bird cards, and the money that you get, you can use to, whatever you want to pay for your horseback riding classes, or for, anything that you want to buy. Like, she's into resin right now. I'm making resin. And I'm like, well, you can wait another month and ask for this for your birthday. Or you can come up, we have some friends that do estate sales, and they've allowed her to set up a little table where she made all these necklaces. She found fossils in our yard. And so she was selling the fossils, and she was selling the necklaces. And I almost stopped her with the fossils, because I thought to myself, I'm like, no one's going to buy fossils that are in your backyard. But people did buy the fossils too. It wasn't just the necklaces. So we have to be careful of not stifling them, or thinking what we think is the right thing to sell, and let them be driven by their creativity. And so what was the latest one? She's been making these resin pieces, necklaces, but she has more friends that are boys than girls. Because I said, oh, you should give these resin necklace pieces to the boys. And she's like, you really think my friends are going to like these? And so I was like, well, you know what you could do? You could sell them at the estate sale, and that way you'll have pieces. They look very professional. And so that already gave her some ideas. And I'm like, and that could help you pay for extra horseback riding classes or something, or to buy more resin. So I think it's, you want to allow them, you can give them ideas, but I think you want to allow the children's imagination, see what they can come up with, because maybe they are artistic and they can sell their art. Maybe they are, if they do necklaces or jewelry, and you can guide them a little bit. But the encouragement is to, like, you could go through your room. We've done this too, like, pull out things that you don't use anymore. We tend to donate, but some of the times, like this last year, the beginning of the year, she got rid of 18 bags of things, and she wanted a new pet in the house, a cockatiel. And we said that we weren't going to pay for it, that we'd help her a little bit, but that if she really wanted that cockatiel, she needed to figure out how she was going to pay for it. And so she she had a thing of tiles of magnets, and we sold that on Craigslist. Obviously we helped her, so it was like a secondhand thing. She sold several of her things that she no longer needed. And so she saw the value in that. My husband does a lot of that, like selling things, from the house. So she learned from that. So I think it's finding ways to empower the kids. You can give them ideas. They can do a lemonade stand, typical traditional cliche thing of making money. One of her friends is making dog portraits because he's very good at drawing. And so he's just doing it for a little amount of dog portraits for friends. So yeah, I think there's so many possibilities for the kids to come up with ideas of how they can make money. Like, could they clean the house, or could they clean a certain area? I remember one time she wanted to do a hairstyling place, like manicure and massages with a friend. And I was like, I don't know how that's going to work, but I'll let her do it, and let them experience that too, and feel rejected too. Because like when she did the estate sales, she would sell it. And she even had a sign that said that 50% of the money that she raised was going to go to animals, she was going to donate it to the animal sanctuary, which is another component that was great, because she actually took 50% of the money that she did. She had like several $100s, and she went to the wildlife center here with the envelope with cash, and she gave it to them. And they said that they were going to make a plaque. We haven't gone back there, with one of the birds that she wanted to sponsor. I don't know if it was a hawk or something, that they would have her name. And so that is such a sense of pride for a kid, that it's not just money for them and for their needs and what they want, but that they were giving back to a cause they believe in.
Did she come up with that herself, that she's going to donate half of the money?
No, I think that we suggested, because ever since she's been young, I've had like the 3 little jars of like when she's had money, and we've practiced this on and off. So I'm just going to preface it that we haven't been super diligent, but for 1 year or 2, like when she was 5 and 6, any money that would come in, there was a jar that was for her, for whatever things she wanted, another one for a cause that she believed in. And she's always been a big advocate for animals. So for the shelters, for birds, for anything. And the third one was to make the money grow. Like, I think she has this concept of the bank. I'm like, this one we'll put in the bank, but it's really like, we'll learn about stock investments. This, you take the money, and if you don't touch it in like a year or 2 years, then it grows kind of like a tree, So I don't know what concept she has in her head of what the bank looks like, that you put the money in there and it just grows or whatever. But I think that concept of giving back with the animals, it was very powerful, because she also saw that a lot of people bought necklaces because they were animal lovers. Maybe they wouldn't have bought it, because they're like, oh, this is for the animals. Well, here's an extra $10, So she saw the power of what she was able to create, not just for herself, but for the cause that she had in mind.
That's an amazing experience. Good job. Good for her.
It's a wonderful idea for anyone that has kids, to encourage them and just empower them. I think the bottom line with this is to empower our kids, to learn about working for money, because there's a transaction. We don't have to attach it to the belief that you have to work hard for money. It's just work. You have to offer someone else value. You made these necklaces, they're of value, they like them, they're buying it, they're transactioning with you. So working for money, but also what money can do, like what it can do for the community, what it can do for the causes you believe in, what it can do, and then how money can grow if you learn the right ways. Like now she's starting to understand about the stock market, like she'll look it through our phone on the app, and she'll tell you, like if Apple is up or Tesla's up or Airbnb, like she'll know like the stocks, because we look at those in the morning. And so I think it's important to add that. I wish I would have learned these things at that age.
Yeah, my daughter just made her her first investment like a few months ago, and she's been asking very excited, how is my investment going? Is it up today?
That is great. How old is your daughter?
She's 9. She's 9.
The same age. I love it.
Yeah.
That is so great.
But she's showing a lot of interest in that area. My 7-year-old is not. So I was curious, how do we get children to just want to know about money and the way it multiplies if they're not curious themselves?
That's an interesting, maybe the curiosity will come a little bit later for your 7-year-old. Once, is it a boy or a girl?
It's a girl.
A girl too. My daughter has shown interest, and maybe because I've been in this arena for a while, and so she hears me talk about certain things. So maybe that's what's created the curiosity for her. But for kids that don't have the curiosity yet, my suggestion is to start them out with those 3 little buckets when they receive money, so that what are you going to do with it? Oh, well, here's a little portion. Like if you get $10, put 4 of them in here for you, put 3 for a cause. What do you believe in? My daughter knows that I believe in women and empowering women as well as kids. And then animals would come third for me in that list. But for her, it was animals, like for someone else, it might be the environment, and talking about like, who can we help? Do you want to help the homeless, the animals? Do you want to help, like just have a cause for them?
She usually just gifts her money to her sisters. So maybe if she has a cause she cares about, she'll readily do that instead. So yeah.
That's so interesting. Why does she give it to the sisters?
I don't know. She's just so generous with all her stuff. She's just giving away. So
that is amazing. So here's how I would position it in that particular case. Say, look, I love this quality in you that you're so generous. And here's what I'm going to suggest when you get money. I want you to give to yourself instead of giving it all away. I want you to give to a cause that you believe in. If it's for your sisters, then that's great. But let's talk about, people that are homeless or kids that don't have gifts, and that don't have clothing or that don't have food. Let's talk about the environment. Let's talk about animals. Like you can talk, you don't have to go in depth because they're young and you don't want to traumatize them either. And then say, so who should we give this to? Do you think other kids that need toys or that need clothes and we could get it for them? And because you're so generous, let's give to the money so the money grows. How about that? How cool would it be? Because if the money grows, then you'll have more to give away. And the more that grows, then we have more to give away. So it's kind of presenting it in a way where you don't have to give it all away, and where she gets to value herself too, and saying, no, I'm giving a little bit to me, a little bit to the cause, and a little bit to the cause of money growing. So we have more to give to other people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. Brilliant. When do you think we should start giving them their allowance for the whole month, for example? So then they can manage their own money. And I think that's a good practice to teach them some spending habits, for the future.
Yeah, allowance is an interesting subject for me. When you give them allowance, and when you're saying allowance, are they earning it?
No.
Or are you just giving it to them?
I'm just giving it to them, but I imagine that would be not just for toys and stuff they want to have, but also for clothes they might need, for all their needs for the month. That's what I imagine, but I still haven't done that.
It's an interesting subject, and I still don't know exactly where I fall with it, as she's getting older, because I do feel, like you mentioned before, I don't want my daughter to feel entitled, like, oh, well, I want this and I get this, or I want a certain amount of money every month and I get a certain amount of money every month. I think we've already been doing a good job of just like teaching her the value of money, that there has to be some type of transaction. You give me value of some sort, whether it's through chores or through something that you've done, that you've put together. And maybe this is my upbringing, but allowances for me were not given just because. I had friends that did have an allowance that was given to them every month. And I was kind of jealous of them because I hadn't earned my allowance.
Through chores, through household?
Through chores, through grades. Like I had to get good grades. Like if I had certain grades, like if I had, I don't know, 5 A's, I can't remember exactly, but if I got like 5 A's, I'd get a little bit more. If I got 2 B's, then it'd be a little bit less. So there was a sense of purpose behind it instead of just like, oh yeah, you need $20 to go out or whatever. And then I thought it was also unfair because my sister is 3 years younger than me, that sometimes they would give her, maybe the same allowance or a higher allowance than when I was her age. My dad was always really good with that. He'd say like, what allowance were you getting when you were 12? But by the time my sister reached the age of 12, or 15 or whatever it was. And it's interesting because I think it's very different too culturally from one culture to another. For me being half American, half Spanish, in the States, kids start working at age 15, 16. Like my mom had summer jobs since she was like 16. In Spain, you can't do that. I don't know how it is in Bulgaria, but in Spain, no one's going to give you a job at 16. It just doesn't happen. I don't know, unless things have changed, in all these years. So you do kind of need your parents to give you money because you can't earn it.
Yes.
So I think it depends on the culture. That's why I think I don't have like a set perspective of what an allowance looks like. And I think it can vary from culture to culture, from household to household. Do you give them an allowance without having earned it? Do you not? Like, I can't say one way is right or wrong. And I think at every age, it's going to be different too. Like,
True.
What is an 18-year-old, or are you giving an 18-year-old, and can they work in your country? Or maybe if they can't work, can they help throughout the household or doing chores or helping in another way where they're bringing value to the family so that they don't become lazy either? Like I tell my daughter now, I'm like, oh, you're almost 10, like that means that you can take on some other responsibilities in the family. Like we all have different responsibilities for this.
Yeah,
So
it's important.
yeah, the allowance conversation is an interesting one. I don't know where I fall with that yet.
We started giving them money for doing household chores. And then I was talking about that with my friends, and they were like, no, the kids should know that they have to do the chores without money. That's part of being a family. They have their own responsibilities. So there's a conflict there.
Yeah, that's where I think it depends on the family, on the situation, on the income level too. I think there's a lot of controversy in both ways. There's people that are very much like they should do it because they're part of the family. Then there's people like they should learn that's how real life is going to be. You do something, you get paid for it, like that's just part of it. I don't know. And then if you just give it to them for not doing anything, like, does that create more of an entitled child? Like, oh, well, when I become older, my parents would always give me. What happens if you're in a financial situation where you can't give them anymore? Like, what will that do to them? Oh my God, I never worked a day. I never did a chore in a day in my life. And now I suddenly have to work for it. Forget that, like, what would that do? Like I said, I don't have the right answer for it, but it's an interesting conversation, Viliana. Like right now, she's not getting an allowance, but she has money saved up from the different activities she's done, when she's set up her little tables and selling.
You mentioned horseback riding. So does she pay herself for the lessons, or?
No, we are paying for those right now. But I think it's all of finding agreements, of like, okay, how many extracurricular activities are you doing? What are we willing to pay for it? And just talk about it and say, that's the budget and the home. But with the horseback riding lessons, she loves that so much that we pay for her 4 classes a month, once a week. If she wants additional classes, that's where I'm saying, well, then do something about it, instead of asking us for it, because that's goes out of our budget, so there's certain that's where I think you have to come for agreements and maybe meet them in the middle, or even like when she got this bird, she paid for like 80% of it, and we said, okay, that's great. You're 9, you saved up, and we'll pay for the rest for you. We're contributing to it. We're helping you in the process of this.
Yeah, I like that. Meeting them in the middle. That's a good point. What about some book recommendations? I'm an avid reader, so I always look for book recommendations on the topic of money mindset. Not for the kids, but
for the adults. Yeah, there's so many. So there's one that's coming more from the spiritual side, and for those that aren't religious, it might trigger you in a different way, but it's Edwina Gaines is the author, and it's called the Four Spiritual Laws of Prosperity. That's one. Another one is Think and Grow Rich. Many entrepreneurs know this one from Napoleon Hill, where he interviews back in the beginning of the 20th century, all the millionaires at the time. So he compiled after 25 years of research, just interviewing, the big people at that time to kind of understand their mindset. There's also Wallace Wattles' Science of Getting Rich. Also an older book, because it's from like 1903, I believe. So that's more from the perspective of men. So just prefacing that one for women, but there's a lot of great information in there. Let me think what other books. I've also, Robert Kiyosaki,
I love him.
Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Yeah.
Have you played the game Cash Flow for Kids? I think that's a way to introduce the fundamentals and some practical ways just to learn about multiplying money. So that's
that is a great one. I have Cash Flow, but it's the adult version. And you just reminded me, I think I might get the kids version, because we've played Monopoly, and I think Monopoly is a good way to kind of understand a little bit with money. But our Monopoly games have gotten vicious, and I think it brings out the worst in people instead of the best in people. So I don't like playing Monopoly anymore. So maybe I'll look into Cash Flow Junior, for the kids.
I also wanted to touch on the topic of manifestation and visualization when it comes to money. Would you say a few things about that?
Yes. Again, it all starts with awareness. Where are we at right now? What are we thinking? What are our desires? A big component of manifestation is being aware of what do you desire, and start having that kid-like mindset, of dreaming, of imagining, like I want to be able to travel, or I want that particular home. I think we need to exercise our imagination. Things come into fruition from the non-physical world, starting with a thought, with our imagination. What is it that you want? What's your vision? What are your desires? Is it a home? Is it a car? And those are material things, like how can you bring them in to physical form? The only way everything that exists in the physical form in our world started with a thought. And it started, like someone created this pen, someone created, the AirPods, someone, like it started in our imagination. So start with visualization and imagining, and carve out time throughout the day to visualize, to imagine those things that you want. I can't tell you how many things I've manifested in my life, from homes to solar panels on my homes, to the cars, to the trips, but it all starts because you're carving out time to imagine that, to put that into form. It's like creating the movie in your head before it can come into physical form. So that's where I say that anyone should start, is with imagination, especially with kids. That's why I don't recommend squashing kids' dreams, like when they have something, it's just instead empower them. Like, oh, well, how can we afford that? You want that, extra horseback riding classes. You want to do 5 classes a week. where can we get the money for that? Like, how can we raise the money for it? And so that way you're helping and empowering them to come up with ideas, because that would be the next step. It's like, okay, I want to look into this trip, or I want this particular home that looks this way. How much does a home like that cost? So then you look into the research, and then you start understanding, like, and then the next question would be like, oof, that cost $1 million. Like, how am I going to get $1 million? Because I don't have $1 million sitting down. But then you give your brain that exercise of having to come up with $1 million to be able to bring that
and you're
forth
used
into
to asking this question. So next time something comes up, you're just automatically asking the question in your head.
And I have a great resource that we can give your audience and your listeners. It's called Amplify Our Abundance. It's a free guide where, like, it's practices to help you manifest your dreams, your desires, by amplifying your abundance, because we tend to be in the space of there's never enough. I don't have enough money. We're in that mentality of lack instead of seeing all the abundance that we have around us.
Thank you for this empowering conversation. I got so many interesting ideas from you. Please tell our listeners about your podcast and where they can find you and learn more from you.
Thank you for that, Bilana. My podcast, it's called The Courage to Be. And you can also find me if you want this free guide, like I said, amplifyourabundance.com. And you'll get some of these resources, practices, habits that I've used in my signature program that's called Money Magic Miracles. In my first cohort, I had 28 women. And in 8 weeks, they manifested over $1.2 million collectively.
Oh, wow.
And so a lot of the practices that we had from Money Magic Miracles are in this free guide of Amplify Our Abundance. So you can start implementing and just kind of getting familiar with it. Yeah, download it. It's going to be so many great things for you in there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What a conversation full of gems. Here are the takeaways. Number 1, a healthy relationship with money is understanding what money can do for you, what money can do for your community and for the world, not fearing it and not being in a place of lack mentality. It's about being curious with your beliefs about money, really questioning what were you taught about money, understanding also that money is not good or bad. It's just the meaning that we give it. We really want to look at it as a relationship with a person. You welcome it, you treat it with respect. If you're ignoring money, it will be no different than ignoring your partner in a relationship or a friend. Number 2, no one wants money for the sake of money. What you really want is the feeling that the things you buy with the money give to you. Number 3, teaching kids money beliefs starts with ourselves first. You can't expect to teach your child money blocks if you can't catch them yourself. Number 4, the phrase "we can't afford it" is an excuse phrase. It's the automatic response that's actually saying to your child, "We're not buying this. I don't want to keep hearing it anymore." It's not an empowering phrase. You're taking away the power that you have. The question is, do you really want that thing? Because if you do want it, then the next question should be, how can you afford it? Number 5, if your kid really wants something, they have a dream. Even if it's temporary, don't squash that dream. Don't say, "We can't afford it," or "That's a stupid dream," or "Why do you want to do that?" We want to support them in their dream, but we're not going to buy it for them. We want them to give value to money, to become resourceful and creative in finding ways to make it work. We can ask them questions like, "Why don't you do some research? How much would that cost? Where could you come up with the money for it?" Number 6, give your child ideas on the ways they can earn their money, but let them be driven by their creativity. See what they can come up with, and let them be and feel rejected too. They can fail in their attempt to earn money and can learn from that experience even more. Number 7, the bottom line is to empower our kids to learn about working for money. We don't have to attach it to the belief that you have to work hard for money. It's just work you have to do. You have to offer someone else value. We must also show them what money can do for the community or for the causes we believe in, and then show them how money can grow if you learn the right ways.
Thank you so much for listening and letting me be a part of your day. If you enjoyed this episode or the show in general, please share it with a friend and help me reach more moms around the world. I would also appreciate it if you consider leaving me a review. Reviews are literally the lifeblood of a podcaster and help me so much. Don't forget to subscribe so you get notified when a new episode drops. See you next week.